see the data, 2%, which is unacceptable. But we need to look beyond the statistics to see the root cause and fix from the beginning and not just like at the table, because by the time we get to the table, it's too late. And I say we flip the table. We flip the table.
Thank you for that amazing welcome. And thank you guys for being here. I can't even tell you, just looking at the room, I'm so overwhelmed because this room looks like Houston to me. Like when I leave and I try to tell people about Houston and how amazing it is because of all of the diversity, not just in gender or race, but in industry. Houston is making marks in every industry. And so I'm really excited to bring a different conversation today in the industry of VC with these two amazing power women. So I'm not going to hold us off any further. I'd like to welcome Stacy Latoyson and Sunny Zhang to the stage. You guys give them a hand. Thank you. So I do want to make a note here. We are going to do Q&A at the end. So please, please, please write down some questions in your phone. These ladies are both phenomenal and I know would love to answer your questions. So hold those off to the end and we'll go around the room. To initially start out, I've met both these ladies in different facets, but one thing I know about them is they both have amazing stories. They both have interesting backgrounds. And so I'd love for us just to kick off with that. So initially to introduce you to these two, Sunny is the co-founder and founding partner at Born Global Ventures, which is a studio and a fund. And Stacy is the founder and CEO of Dream Big Ventures. And so I'm going to kick it off with Stacy. Stacy, I know you've been in Houston for quite a while, but I'd love for you to just tell us your initial origin story and kind of how you got into VC.
Well, first of all, hello, good afternoon, Houston. It's an honor to be here and be invited by Sarah, and the team is doing really incredible things, hosting these events and raising awareness in our community. I see some familiar faces and a lot of new faces, and it's beautiful to see the room just packed with really incredible people, and look forward after this to meeting you all and having some one-on-one conversations and hearing all about what you're doing in your businesses. So my name is Stacy Latoyson. I am a native Houstonian, one of the few of us. I'm Puerto Rican and Cuban. I did my undergrad at U of H, and I serve on the board there. And then also I did my MBA at St. Thomas. I know that's another thing that Sunny and I have in common. And I worked for Chevron for 22 years in a male-dominated industry. Was able to break a lot of glass, kick a lot of doors open. Wasn't always wanted, but I'm like, I'm going to go and take it because I know that I'm capable. And I'm confident in my skills. And so I had a few amazing experiences working overseas as an expat. I spent 5 years in China.
Has your daughter there?
Yes, my daughter was born in Beijing. And my son, who's sitting over here, can speak Mandarin. It's pretty incredible. He was there between 10 and 15 years old. Now he's 25. And then right before the pandemic, I was in Angola, Africa. So I've always been very open-minded, adventurous, ready to, learn new skills, meet new people, learn about different cultures, and take on any challenge. Well, during the pandemic, we got evacuated here in Houston, and all of our things were still in the house in Angola for like 18 months. Because we thought, oh, maybe it'll be 3 months, but as we all know, it just kept getting extended. So now planted my feet here during the pandemic. I attended a women's executive conference where Serena Williams was the keynote speaker. And that's where I first learned that only 2% of venture capital funds go to women and diverse-led startups. So I was like, okay, well, I'm ready to kick down another door. Like, let's go. Like, this is ridiculous. I was like outraged. And then I decided to enroll at Columbia and actually graduating in September from their venture capital and private equity program. I had always wanted to go to Ivy League school, made straight A's, and and I got pregnant with my son when I was 17. So, my journey kind of changed a little bit, and I needed to stay in Houston because I needed support to take care of my baby. So, now I was like, well, I'm 42 years old. Like, what's stopping me now? He's grown. My daughter's great, and I'm always encouraging my kids to follow their dreams. So why am I not doing the same? So that's the reason why I decided I'm going to go to Ivy League school and still, I don't want to ever have any regrets of things that I didn't try.
Yeah, I love that. It's never too late. It's never too late.
Never too late to chase your dreams. And I wanted to, compliment you because even this forum here was a dream of yours, and to have, an all-female panel here to showcase, the talent that we have in this city and how diverse it is. And so, kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you so much. I mean, what a story. And I'm sure that somewhere in all of our journeys, we can think through a difficult pathway where we didn't see a pathway forward. But Stacey is such a huge testament to continuing to pursue your dreams. I'd love to kick it over to Sunny and hear a little bit about Stacey. If you'll pass your mic to her. Sorry, I've only got 2 today. We're limited on resources. But I'd love to hear your background,
Absolutely.
a little bit about your story and how you got into VC.
Yeah, so first of all, such an honor to be here. I just love the vibe of this room. A round of applause for the organizers and remarkable story from Stacey. So a little bit of myself, I felt like we both from unconventional background. Speaking of venture capital, I actually came as an academic. In fact, I'm still a professor at the University of St. Thomas. Anybody been to the campus? Beautiful, designed by Philip Johnson? Yes. So I've been there for 11 years, but altogether I've been teaching for 20 years. A quick flashback, thinking about how I got started. In fact, when I was doing my master's more than 20 years ago, I designed an app to conduct online survey through messengers like MSN Messenger, OICQ, anyone that shows age? And I totally nailed it for my master's thesis. At the time, it was risk perception in online shopping, like e-commerce, basically, why are people not adopting new technology? And I did that through Messenger. And I had no idea that app could have turned into SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics or one of the, unicorn companies. I just wrapped up my academic thesis and came to the United States to pursue my PhD. So that's how I initially get started. And then I came, right? That was when Facebook, MySpace were taking off, and my research was how the social network is affecting our decision-making and attitude. And again, I designed 2 apps. I worked day and night in the library, which is open 24/7, to capture the network data and manipulate the relationships, strong ties, weak ties, network structure, and have the reviews, people read the same reviews, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, that was my PhD dissertation, which also didn't turn into a unicorn company. And the developer that I worked with now works as a senior engineer at Facebook. I mean, Meta, of course. So it's just a fact that, we're just so fragmented and divided. Like the researchers, they are advancing. They're working on papers that maybe a few people in the world would read. And, for me to continue my academic career, of course, I was at Indiana University, started teaching, and then went to Colorado State University, Fort Collins. And because of family reason, I think a lot of people came to Houston because of family reason, because my business partner, who's also my life partner, works in the oil and gas industry. So that's how I found myself in Houston. And I wanted to share, my Houstonian moment. I felt like when I first moved here, I just lived here. But after Harvey, I really, truly became a loyal Houstonian because everybody came together, regardless of where, how we look, what language we speak, where we come from. We were all helping each other. We were flooded and, but instead of being depressed or grumpy, we actually started a lot of community initiatives. Anyways, I just want to somehow like the vibe of this room and the fact that Stacy's also a native Houstonian just brought me that sentiment of like what makes Houston very different. And I'm sure we're going to touch on that too. In terms of venture landscape, there are some really unique characteristics that the Houston ecosystem has and nowhere else have. But speaking of, the venture journey, it's really after, basically because of my research, right? I always, are involved in the intersection between innovation, technology, business, and people. So in my teaching, I've always taken my students to work with, small businesses, startups. In fact, some of the founders sitting here have worked with my students. So I saw very up close about all the gaps in early stage venture building. Like, it's not just a matter of money. Like, it's just such a fragmented landscape that you need all the capitals, and not just financial capital. So that's when we started our venture studio, literally investing, but building with founders from scratch. That's the model we started with. And then fast forward, with all these amazing quality deal flows coming from all over the world, we added a fund. So that's our involvement. And personally, from an academic educator to entrepreneur and venture builder and investor, I hope that gives a quick glance over my involvement.
Yeah, no, I'd love it. And on that note, I'd love to know who's in the room, if you don't mind. Raise your hand if you're a student or you're here on behalf of an institution. Great. Raise your hand if you're a founder or an entrepreneur.
Woohoo!
Fantastic.
Kudos to you guys.
Raise your hand if you're a corporate entrepreneur, corporate professional. Great. And raise your hand if you're in transition. You're looking for an opportunity. Okay. Anybody who's looking for people, listen, loud and proud. Thank you guys for being here. I love that we have that mix in the room. And I'd love to kind of talk through what you both see as far as the landscape in VC. So, obviously there's different challenges and you each come from different backgrounds and perspectives. So I'd love to know kind of what you see in the VC landscape and what you're trying to solve with your individual companies.
Okay, so what I didn't get to yet was I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I worked as a corporate professional for 22 years. And then at some point it got to, hey, if I'm going to make any progress and advance in venture capital with Dream Big Ventures, and I had to make a decision because whatever I do, I give like 200%. So I decided in September to retire, even though I started Dream Big Ventures in early 2022, with the intention to invest in women and underrepresented founders. That's the only way we're going to make any progress and solve this problem with the 2% problem. So yeah, working overseas, I did pretty well. And for years, I really didn't have any bills because the company, it's got really great expat benefits. And so, yes, Africa, they gave like a big premium, but there's a lot of things I could be doing, other things that I could be doing with the capital that I have. And I am putting it towards these founders. So right now I am a LP limited partner in Mendoza Ventures, who I hosted in Houston at the ION last week. And they're the first Latino and woman-led venture capital firm on the East Coast who has raised $100 million. Incredible. And I feel so grateful that they're my mentors and advisors. And so, and I'm the first Latina in Texas to raise a fund. So, I'm also an LP in SoftTech. So a few of you are here today. And I'm also on the advisory board, and it's amazing to partner with them. They're really great allies for female founders, a pile here at the helm, making sure to keep them in check, and it's amazing. They also host a female founders and funders breakfast at Sesh Co-working every month. So if any of you, want to continue the conversation, that's a great place to meet more female entrepreneurs and founders and funders. I'm also a shareholder at Agility Bank, if any of you have heard of that. It's the first women-owned and led bank in all of Texas, maybe even in the nation. And we just had our second annual shareholder meeting with really incredible women. And I'm very, very proud of that project, or of that milestone, to be a part of that. I'm also part of Angeles Investors, which invest in Latino founders, and it's all Latino funders from all over the nation and LATAM who are involved. So, it's like a really incredible network. It's vice presidents and CEOs of different corporations who are all angel investors here. So, my network, just being part of that, has really expanded. And then they just named me the Texas regional lead. So, trying to help build more of that in the Texas region. Also Urban Capital Network, maybe some of you, they're also local, and I'm an LP in that fund, as well as Portfolio, which is all women investors investing in women-led startups. So now, fast forward, hopefully my goal this year is to raise and launch my first fund. So you will be hearing that in the fall. To invest in energy transition. Since I have the 22 years, let's put it to work. I don't want to see the same people who already dominate energy are the ones who are going to be getting, benefiting, reaping all the benefits from that. So it's time that we also have a woman and a diverse-led startups who are also having a part of the pie, because equity grows the pie. So energy transition, climate tech, as well as health tech, since that's the bread and butter of Houston and of Texas.
Yeah, two great legacy industries. Thanks for your perspective on that, Stacey. And I'm hearing the undertone of two things. Did you guys get it? That punch right in the gut that says bet on yourself? She preaches that so loud and proud. And I think the other thing is what Stacey's talking about is networking and making sure you're aligning with organizations and networks that share your values and how important that is. And in the venture world, this is super important. One, leveraging your networks, but also leveraging the networks of your investors. And so, Sunny, on that realm, do you want to talk a little bit about that, about the kind of the landscape of VC as it pertains to leveraging networks? What are you supposed to be looking for in an investor, and what do investors look for?
Absolutely. So really kudos to Stacey for all the pioneering work she's doing. Really, I felt like we're all lucky. We're blessed to have her in Houston, because not only is she investing in all these funds, she's actually sharing the learning with the general community. As she mentioned, there are tons of activities she's involved, but she's been also hosting educational events at the ION and other places. Essentially, that's really what's been missing. It's like we have plenty of capital. It's just like because of connections and lack of awareness, there are two worlds of venture, the insiders and the outsiders. And the outsiders are not invited. And I felt like what Stacey has been doing is not only, just really delving into the venture space, but she's also bringing in all these diverse potential, not only founders, but investors, because we need to get together. We have a lot of traditional capital that came from oil and gas and all the traditional, like commercial real estate, for example. We just need to almost like be open and welcoming instead of closed door. This is like a private club, and if you're not part of this, you're out. So, following that, I wanted to share our investment thesis, which is for capital, as I mentioned, right? We can't just invest in financial capital, because a lot of founders are like, if only I have the money. Guess what? You're gonna realize once you have the money, oops, I'm missing so many components, right? So number one, intellectual capital, which is the know-how, the strategy, the navigation, because speaking of coming from non-entrepreneurial background or non-venture background, I have to say, we don't start from zero, guys. We start from -0. We have to unlearn a lot of things that the society tell us to get to 0 and start building to 1 and to 10 to 100. So there's a lot of intellectual capital where we need. And that's also, kudos to Stacey for all these educational programs. I wish I could attend, but I'm still teaching at University of St. Thomas. I'm doing my part of the education. So that's the intellectual capital. But I do send events to my students. So hopefully, involve the next generation of talents. The second one is human capital. Because even if you're a solo founder, you're going to need a team to build your product, to serve your customers, to engage your community. So you are going to need human capital. And very importantly, social capital. Did I mention outsiders, insiders? If you don't have that connection, if you can't bring your product to the market, they're always going to stay in the lab, stay in the closet, stay in the garage, stay in the master thesis or PhD dissertation that nobody reads. You know what I mean? So you need that social capital to bring it out to the marketplace and to connect you with your investor as well. So that's the reason. And in this order, guys, that's another day why I rank it in this order. Once you have that, guess what? The financial capital is going to come. In fact, there are going to be so many checks lined up. You have to, have a hard time picking, like, which check am I going to pick? Because I'm going to tell you, not all money is going to bring up equal, because there's a lot of value add. And that's why when you're picking investors, don't just pick the check. See what's behind it. Anyways, so that's the 4 capital investment thesis that we have at Born Global Ventures. And guess who are missing these 4 capitals? It's the underserved founders. It's the women, it's the minorities, it's the immigrants that came as outsiders. They're not connected. They don't have, the right kind of strategy and mindset. They are super passionate. They're actually seeing untapped marketplace that was forgotten previously with huge potential and huge purchase power too. But they're lacking the intellectual capital, the human capital, the social capital. And of course, as a result, because we always see the data, 2%, which is unacceptable. But we need to look beyond the statistics to see the root cause and fix from the beginning and not just like at the table. Because by the time we get to the table, it's too late. And I say we flip the table. We flip the table and we make it a round table. It should not be a table of founders on one side, investors on the other side. It should be a round table where everybody can play a role. And that's really, when we started Born Global, there's, of course, on the face value, I haven't mentioned this, and adding another question to Sarah's quick survey. Anybody born from outside the United States? Proudly raise your hand, because we're so used to keeping our head down, doing good work, and not claiming credit. I'm telling you guys, United States is a country that was built by immigrants, but for whatever reason, over the years, over generation, we seem to be forgetting that fact. But data shows we are the backbone of the economy. We are the drivers. We are the engines of America's innovation and entrepreneurship and innovation. There's solid data backing this. I'm going to start from the top. Did you know that 55% of US unicorns have at least one foreign-born founder? And did you know population-wise, foreign-born Americans only account for 14%? So they're disproportionately successful. I have to be careful about overrepresentation, like underrepresented, because somehow they are disproportionately successful. But then if you, trace down, how did they get there? So immigrant entrepreneurs are twice likely to start a company to start with. And foreign-born STEM major, like STEM professionals, are twice likely to file patents. And among all US innovation, outcome, like which is measured by patents and all IP, 36% were contributed by immigrants directly and indirectly because they work with native-born innovators too. That's the thing. When we are trying to advocate for diversity, we don't want to go to the other extreme. Oh, it's all women or it's all immigrants. We want to emphasize, guess what? Native-born and foreign-born, we are all here. We're all proud Houstonians. We're proud Americans. Let's work together because this is our shortcut to take our company and scale globally, which is the premise of venture capital. It's scalability. When you can scale beyond your city, your state, your country, and go international, why not? And working with immigrants, collaborating with foreign-born entrepreneurs is also a shortcut for native-born founders to take their company internationally too. And of course, foreign-born entrepreneurs tend to found internationally scalable companies just because of their background, their mindset, and of course, their connections too. And I'll end with this. Did you know what's the percentage of foreign-born Houstonians? 1 in 4, guys. 1 in 4 Houstonians are foreign-born. We are such a diversity. We are the #1 diversity of the United States. And guess what? Diversity drives innovation. If you look at the Bay Area, if you look at Boston, New York, if you look at the most mature ecosystems, they're all areas with density of immigrant, foreign-born, and diverse entrepreneurs. And we have that right here in Houston. We have all it takes. So I wanted to say, congratulations, everybody. We are at the right time, at the right place to do the right thing with the right people.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, and there's so much that Sunny touched on there, but I'd like to, kind of circle back to some of the importance. When she talks about diversity, what we're talking about is not just diversity in gender, not just diversity in ethnicity, but diversity of thought, diversity of experience, exposure to a perspective that's outside of your own. And I know specifically, Stacy started doing these events at the ION, and I sat, in that room, and one of the founders of Mendoza Ventures, his name's Adrian Mendoza, he said, if we want to change who gets the checks, we have to change who's writing the checks. And that goes for females. Yeah, flipping the table, like Tony said. So I'd love to dig into, Stacy, you really approached the ION with doing this event and creating this investor series. And it has to do with networking, but it has to do with an exchange of information too. Tell me what the inspiration for doing that event was and why we need more of these happening.
Well, as she said, our city is so diverse, but I also look at our future leaders, and and also our city is like 40% Latino, yes. But yet, and is the working population as well is also majority Latino. So, we have to create opportunities. We have to carve our own pathway. And, I'm honored to be able to be a leader and have the ability to share what I know. And also every time I learn something from other people, I love talking with people afterwards and before and, to have an exchange of information because I continue to learn and grow as well. Yeah, and then the people who are on the panel who I bring in specifically to show what can be done because there's so much untapped potential right here in Houston. We're only scratching the surface. You think in 3, 5, 10 years where we're going to be, and it's really amazing to think that far ahead, but that's what we need to do. And we've got to put into action those things now so that we do make progress and that we can reach our potential.
Yeah, this is something I have to kind of commend Stacy on because she's very masterful at it, and that's leveraging her network. She's extremely generous. And when you're looking for an LP or partner or someone that you're hoping to invest in, you want someone who's generous with their network, generous with their knowledge, but that also has the perspective and the expertise to help forward your industry, right? Sunny, walk me through some of the kind of some of the skills and some of the things that are important to look for if you're going to invest in a company, or vice versa if you're a company wanting to be invested in. What questions should you be asking? What things should you be looking for?
So for us, because our thesis, Born Global Ventures, right? So number one, we need to have a globally scalable strategy from day one. I've seen a lot of founders with great idea, but it's only limited to certain demographics, which is limiting their growth. So, that's just a very special thing based on our investment thesis. And of course, it's always the founders, the team that are most critical. The reason is for early stage, by the way, you should really hang out with Stacy to attend all the educational events. I felt like there's a lot of 101 that we haven't covered in terms of, the landscape of ventures investing. There's, very early stage, then there's growth stage. Essentially depending on the stage, right? I believe Houston as an emerging ecosystem, we need more early stage funds, which will invest in pre-seed and seed to fix the gap. Because we actually have great exit opportunity with all the Fortune 500 companies in Houston. By the way, Texas has the most Fortune 500 company in the state, and Houston has the most Fortune 500 company in Texas. In other words, in terms of the infrastructure, we are positioned to have great exit, which is fantastic. When it comes to building startups, right? You need the talents. Of course, you need the capital, you need the talents, but you also need the exits just to think how are you going to bring the return, right? So I believe we actually are positioned very well later on, but there's a huge gap in the early stage where we call it the valley of death. Literally, there's a chicken egg problem there. And that's the reason we want our founders to be resilient. In fact, I want to share an analogy. It's almost like, you have probably seen the death of unicorn lately, due to valuation. So we always talk about forget about unicorns. We're not chasing them. We want to see the projection, but we want to see the cockroach founders that cannot be killed. The resilient founders that have gone through hardships and, downturn, that's nothing. I'm actually super excited about the downturn because the founders that we're looking for, they are going to stand out because they are capital efficient, they're frugal, they're resilient, they're persistent. They're not the kind of founder that's going to raise $1 million on the back of a napkin, just talking fluff ideas. They do substantial work. So, and we believe in them because the product itself will pivot. And I guarantee you, what you started now is not going to be what you will be known for as a unicorn in the future. So don't be obsessed on the product. Stay close to your customer. So that's why, marketplace, the team, outstanding founders, but very resilient and crisis proof, almost because right now, 2023, the keyword is stretch. You just have to, stretch all the way until the LPs and the funds recover, and it's the best time to build. And I also wanted to emphasize on the gap and misunderstanding between building a product and building a company. We are investing in companies and not just product or technology. I'm seeing a lot of founders, especially coming from tech background, that's very, product driven or technology driven. And by the way, did I mention I'm a marketing professor teaching for 20 years? I'm biased, but you have to be market driven. And especially nowadays, stay close to your customers. Almost like the best way to build is build with your customers so that you know what they're looking for and you build the product that people need. And then, have a strong company, have a business model around it. And it's not just okay, we built this product and we're going to raise money. That's something I wanted to emphasize because I'm seeing that misconception when founders are building. So adding to what we're looking for. So scalability in their marketplace, founders, but very much market driven. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sunny. And Stacy, you just mentioned you're going to be raising your first fund. Dream Big Ventures is essentially a newer venture. Tell me a little bit about some of the things you're doing. I know we have some people in the room who are interested in getting into venture. Tell me about some of the opportunities that might exist for those people who are interested, and then also what you're doing to gain traction at Big Dream Ventures. What are some of the things you're investing in early on?
Okay. Well, I have a lot of investments.
She's been writing
I have deployed a lot of capital in the last 6 months, and it's amazing. Well, one thing, Mendoza's a proven record. They're sharing a lot of their LPs. They're ready to invest in my fund when I get it going. Sharing of the legal. I've got Jesse Martinez here as an amazing resource with 25 years of Silicon Valley experience. So I've got really great advisors,
Yes.
To bounce ideas off of, to get access to resources, to make sure that it is done right.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's leveraging knowledge where you don't have the expertise. The first thing to gaining knowledge is admitting what we don't know, right? And looking around and seeing who we can leverage. I know you've been very intentional about pursuing pathways that align with your values, so that therefore there's generosity back and forth. And then, did I mention the networking and marketing genius this lady is, right? You walked in, you saw her pens, you saw all these things. There's a lot of things that she does.
Okay, yes, I do have to say, and I have been extremely intentional about supporting women-led and Latino-led or, diverse-led businesses, period. So, this amazing marketing team, Good Sparrow, I can't say enough about and give enough praise about what they have done and the value that they bring. People all over America are like, wow, who is doing your social media? These two are incredible. Please give them a round of applause. And guess where? From the Wolf Center of Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got some cougs in the house. Sarah here. I was on the Soft Tech podcast, and I was so impressed with the questions, the run of show, just like how everything was just so impeccable. So I was like, I've got to work with her. So I sent her an email, call her. I'm like, hey, I'm going to put these events on at the Ion, and I would love for you to be involved. And so it's, the people in the background who add so much value. So that's why I have to give all the credit to this team that's doing really incredible things. And of course, Oriana, she's not here. She hurt her back, but she still dropped off the merch. And she makes sure that everything is so well done and flawless at all the events. So I really appreciate her too.
Yeah. So what Stacy's talking about, I think, is a super important point. And that's when you're looking to invest in a community or you're looking to invest in an industry, you have to put your money where your mouth is. So whether that's you're investing specifically in those companies or you're leveraging services from your community. I'm gonna tell you what, Houston's not known as the marketing hub it should be. And so finding a good marketing company that has the same values or that is led by a diverse founder or underrepresented founder, you have to really be intentional about seeking those people out and intentional about sending work certain pathways. So if you're looking to build in medical, you need to make sure that you're advocating for the companies that you know about in your atmosphere. And so it's really that sharing and making sure that we're putting our dollars and our networks in a place where they can be utilized by people who are under-resourced, right? So I'll just say on behalf of the Leadership Forum, one of the things that was super important to us was access. So how can we charge for an event? How can we charge for lunch? How can we charge for these things? Why do we choose not to do that? Because we chose to ungate it. And that's something that these ladies are talking about, is the importance of opening up access to information. So in that realm, I'd love for you both to kind of, square off with what is the future as it pertains to how you're looking to open up access?
Absolutely. So number one, again, did I mention I'm biased toward the importance of marketing? So, living proof of how powerful marketing could add value to your business. And I also think Houston is under marketed. Do you guys agree with me? We actually have a branding issue. I felt like my students and myself have been the volunteers for the city. They didn't hire us, but we've been trying to, shout out on social media, report what's happening, because to bring people, the first step is awareness. I'm going to put my professor hat for a second. There's a model called AIDA. A stands for awareness, I, interest, D as desire, and then action. So it's going to take a long way to get to the action. And every step.
That's mi abuela's name. I have it tattooed
Aida.
right here on my ankle. Aida.
Beautiful, Aida. Yeah, exactly. So, and of course you're not only the believer, you're also the doer. Because if we don't even know what's happening, 20 years ago when I was doing my research developing apps and had no idea what's outside the academia, you're never going to turn that into a revenue generating business. And I also wrote something, I felt like it's one of my top performing posts on LinkedIn. If we're not connected, please do reach out, because I share a lot of personal journey. I share my learning as well. When I became a business professor, that was 2009. I started making six-figure salary, and nobody invited me to invest in startups, because it's just like, you don't look like an investor, I suppose. I guess I still don't look like an investor. It's just in terms of intentionally bringing people in. And speaking of being an outsider, nobody's more outsider than a foreign-born innovator immigrant who came from their home country and now in the United States, but called this home. This is home for us, because I've heard some comments like, hey, we're going to take care of the locals before we take care of the internationals. I was like, who says they're not locals? We are Americans. There are two kinds, by birth and by choice. We came here by choice, and we actually appreciate all the resources. So speaking of, insiders, outsiders, I just wanted to share that because I came as an international student, and I feel deeply in debt of this country, and I have been a beneficiary over the years, being supported by amazing mentors, allies. So when I've gone this far, I wanted to share the resources, the learning, my connections, all the four capitals, so that you don't have to wait for 20 years or 10 years to start action. Essentially, when we didn't have friends and family, when we came to the country, we become friends and family for each other. And that literally happened. My life partner and I met in grad school when we were both international students. So we literally became friends and family and business partners with each other. I also wanted to share, also from the perspective of Access, I am actually, I'm keep counting, 3-time immigrants. Meaning the first time was from the country where I was born to the country I call home. The second time was from academia to the industry. The third time is from entrepreneur to an investor. Every time you are venturing into a foreign land, how many founders, started a company only to realize, oh my goodness, everybody's speaking English, but I have no idea what they're talking about, like term sheets, cap table, MVP, what does this all mean? You know what I mean? So I actually wanted you guys to pause and reflect, regardless of where you were born, and think about what defines us as innovators and entrepreneurs. It's our constant quest to foreign land, to new territory. It is the reason Elon Musk launched Starship, wanted to go to Mars. It's the same spirit. By the way, read Oleg's newsletter and see the truth. It's not what you read in media about the blow up, and it's a huge triumph. So things are not how you look at the surface. There's a lot of back office, a lot of building that we don't see. So I wanted to encourage everybody to just, keep on exploring. Embrace the fact that you come from a unique and different perspective, because what makes you different does not make you less it makes you more.
Yeah. And who better to do the work? Like she said, the time is now, and who better to do the work than the people who are here in this room, in this community? Who better to build it than the people who are going to stay here and build their futures here and their families here? And so I know Dream Big Ventures has plenty of aspirations for the future, but what are you looking forward to? What are you looking to build and change here in Houston?
What I would like to see is all the founders in the room also becoming investors. When you exit your company and you become very wealthy, and now you are fueling more innovation and more investment. Like, that is what the ultimate goal is here. And that's why, we have such a focus on this ecosystem. And that's how it actually works in other places, in Silicon Valley and in Boston. So that's what I would like to see.
Yes. And I love that even, with the investor series, we're getting to hear from really established ecosystems, and you're bringing that great information to Houston so that we can, take the things that we want to, keep the Houston flavor, stay true to ourselves and the legacy industries that we have, but learn from the experience and other tech hubs. So I love that. I know that there's probably some people with some questions, so I thank you guys for both of your insight, but I'd love to pass it over to the crowd. If anybody has any questions, they'd love to. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Okay, Joe, shoot.
I'll start with a comment. I don't know if do you want me to.
Oh, we've got Simi coming. Yeah.
Sure.
I wanted to share with you guys what I saw in a tweet storm, someone from Silicon Valley. And he said, the reason why Silicon Valley has a 75% startup success rate is because they have a very specific formula. So it started out $125K for Y Combinator pre-seed. They got the product iterated, go-to-market worked out. And then at the end of the 90 days, now it's $500K, by the way, because they've been so wildly successful, $70 billion in returns after 18 years. But after the 90 days, they had like traction day. And so they all tractioned each other. They forced each other to sign up for each other's products. Then they had customers. Then YC said, oh, well, we're going to lead your demo day, but it's actually going to be one-on-one with like 10 investments, and we're leading the round. So they lead the seed round. They go out on whatever Sandhill Road, and they have Benchmark, Graycroft, all the Sequoia, and they have them like close together, so they create FOMO. They're like, well, we only have 20 minutes. We have to be at Sequoia. And they're like, oh, well, okay, we're in. You guys are leading. Look at the traction. We're in. So they raised the money in a day, and then the companies pre-seeded, go-to-marketed, tractioned, seeded, and that's how they got to 75%. So I was thinking about Houston. I wondered, do you think we could do that? It's actually a proven formula.
Stacey, would you like? I heard you saying, yeah.
I studied this, guys. Did I mention it's the power of social networks? It's my dissertation topic. That's why I'm so passionate about the fact that it's the density of their network, and they have this collective intelligence. In other words, they have this tribe where the founders are not doing this alone. The investors are also not doing alone. There's a lot of FOMO, as you mentioned. Everybody want to jump on board, get a piece of that. And they also are very, I think a key word you mentioned was they sign up for each other's product. That's something that's missing in Houston, because as a startup, it's very hard to sell to corporate. Like, did I mention that early, stage valley of death? Because when you're small, it's very hard to sell to big buyers, like Fortune 500, let's say. But what happened there is the startups are using each other's product. So that's what we're trying to do. And I didn't mention, Born Global under this brand is not just the studio that we started building from scratch with all the service providers, but also the fund. Very importantly, we have a 501c3 nonprofit organization called Born Global Community, where founders get together. It's almost like for one session at Venture Lab, we are on each other's team. That's something we want to cultivate and facilitate on the founder side. Now, on the investor side, Stacey knows this. We actually get together every month. So we compare notes. because the investors need to get together more often too. The downside of Houston, which is also what we're proud of, we're so big, we're so widespread out. We don't just run into each other at downtown coffee house like, what's happening in Silicon. We actually have to be intentionally gathering. So we now have like a monthly VC funds breakfast where, like funds compare notes about what's happening here. What do we do? What are the things that we need to fix? And then a very diverse group of anybody that's accredited investor getting together, just like, what about your portfolio diversification? Of course, you have brewery, winery, oil and gas, but what about the startup side? To intentionally bring more diverse investors, as I mentioned, coming from different backgrounds, right? Going into this new land, speaking of a foreign language in English, so that we can make this, condensed network intentionally happen when geographically it takes an hour to go to Houston, in Houston, that, we're so widespread out. So that's definitely something that's being planned. In fact, the whole area around ION that was supposed to be so-called innovation corridor, now becoming ION district. In the next 20 years, we will have this epic center of innovation. So right now we're already seeing the gathering from an event perspective, but I also wanted to say it should happen not just at events. Like, the events bring people together, but we need to have ongoing platforms. Simple things we're trying to fix with other, ecosystem leaders. Like, do we have
like by bringing a VC conversation to
like
a coffee
this?
house?
Yeah, exactly. To the neighborhood.
Those type of things. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yep. Oh, go ahead.
What's up, Chap? Thank you so much. No worries. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Hamzetta of Bogbo. I work with the Texas Star Alliance. We're a boutique lobbying firm, have access to various different types of capital. So one of the comments you made was with regard to startups getting connected with corporates. I actually think that there are several examples. For example, the IONS ecosystem is designed around that. I'm on the advisory board of the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. We host a Shark Tank event where there are several startups that are partnering with, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for your great work, and there were some great examples. Kudos.
Question?
Hello, thank you. I am Maria de Los Angeles from Argentina. Thank you. I would like to ask you or give me an advice. We're thinking about a platform, sorry for my English. Thank you. A platform to learn Spanish and English in the first stage for blind kids, children. So I know that maybe you have more experiences in this. Could you please give me an advice? What do you think about this? What is, of course, is something is coming, I would.
I think that's a wow idea.
I love it.
Thank you.
I mean, you're already halfway there. You're already, disrupting something that we don't have yet that people need. There's definitely a market out there. So it's beautiful. Kudos to you. I'm not a founder, but probably somebody else in this room you can get connected with that can help you, get that along and get it jumped off the ground.
Yeah, for sure. Founders, raise your hand. Connect with each other. Try out each other's apps. Get on, give feedback.
Yes.
Yeah. Another question. I saw a hand.
And I wanted to say, I loved that example. Like, everybody here should get connected and become users on each other's platforms. That is so important, and that's how we're going to grow. Actually, I have to thank Edward Shipper here. He invited me to this Goldman Sachs Women in the Lead luncheon. And, also besides the ION things, it's like we're in the background doing luncheons together, but also making other wealthy people aware of our VC ecosystem here in Houston, because Houston is very philanthropic. But a lot of the women, especially, are not making investments because they're not aware. So I'm there at our Agility Bank shareholder meeting and at the Goldman Sachs and at Bank of Texas and all these things to let the women know, like, hey, you don't have to just be. That's wonderful. It is so wonderful that you're doing those things, but you can also build your wealth and invest in our ecosystem.
Hi, my name is Sammy Toyoba. I'm a strategy consultant, and I work with a company that does a lot of due diligences for private equity clients. So it was great to hear your perspectives today, ladies. One question I have is, Sonia, I know you mentioned that you prefer working with cockroach companies as opposed to unicorns. And
Proudly.
during this mild recession that we're in, you mentioned that these companies are having to stretch their funds and to really work with their companies. I thought it would be interesting to hear some examples from both of you, actually, of any startups you've seen who've really been a testament to being a cockroach company.
Okay, in fact, I'm working on something about, the new, because there's a lot of new terminologies coming up, like, okay, now we don't see unicorns anymore. What are we looking for? So Techstar came up with dragon companies. And I actually wanted to say phoenix companies, the ones that died and come back. It's probably, a cockroach in disguise of a fancier outlook, but the spirit is there. And there are some examples that essentially went through pivoting. In fact, I would just use some, well-known companies that you probably didn't know that they went through that kind of phase. When COVID happened, which companies were hit the most, because we weren't able to travel anymore, like fast-growing company. Airbnb, nobody's renting anymore, but they quickly pivoted. They had virtual tours. You can actually visit like celebrity houses. I mean, experiences like essentially they were dying pretty much when COVID happened. But then they turned that into opportunity. So same thing right now. And going back to, advice for founders that have great idea, it's almost like, when funds are low, which is just a fact right now, it's just, we have to recover from the reset, like the turbulence that's happening again. Silicon Valley Bank, you just saw First Republic. It's going to take a little time for venture capital to recover in the United States, but stay close to your customers. In fact, you've heard go to market, right? Instead of go to market, go to community. Like, essentially, if you can stay close to your customers and really create that revenue, instead of the previous YC model of the value chain being built by investors. You get 100K, you get 500K, then you get 1 million, 5 million. Like that's investor-driven value chain. If we could actually go back to customer and market-driven value chain, you are going to be building such a strong company so that when the investors recover and they're ready to deploy, you have such strong track record. And that's what I mean by, basically utilizing all the capital. Like you don't have financial capital, you have relationships with your customers. You have smart ideas. You have talents that are willing to work with you. So maybe I'll just end with the tremendous opportunity we have in Houston, right? Number one, emerging ecosystem. Number two, diverse founders. And number three, we have plenty of talents. We have plenty of marketplace. We just need to bring them together. And very importantly, essentially, my takeaway for you is that be resourceful, be resilient. You will be surprised. You have what it takes. So in other words, if we can take a break from chasing after, checks, if we can chase our customers instead, while the investors recover, while Stacy's raising. So when she closes her fund, she's ready to deploy, and you have the track record with revenue and customers and all that. That would work out, perfectly for our emerging ecosystem when it's the best time to build, because unfortunately right now talents are more affordable
And
than
listen,
before.
you have an opportunity like no other to meet these two amazing women who do invest in companies and who are happy to answer your questions, connect with them on LinkedIn. To close this out, I just want to give them a huge round of applause for sharing their knowledge with us and for being present with us.